Don't hate me for this, but lifting heavy does not build more muscle. Look, I know we've all heard the saying that you gotta lift big to get big. And yes, there is some truth to that statement, but it doesn't tell the entire story. Because I think we've all experienced going to the gym and seeing a guy that is jacked out of his mind. And when you take a closer look at his workouts, it may look like he's lifting weights that are a lot lighter than you would expect. And when you see this, you might first think, maybe it is his genetics. Maybe he's taking vitamin S, but maybe he's actually training very smart. And also, let's get real. When you lift heavy all the time, it can make your joints feel like sandpaper. So going lighter can give your joints a very nice break. And also, it doesn't hurt that when you know how to train with light weights, it gives you more freedom in your training because you can use weights, body weight, or even both. And as of today, there's actually tons of research that has shown that you can actually build just as much muscle with light and heavy weights, as long as you focus on one special condition, which I'm going to share a little bit later. But even though training light can give you some good results, it is also very easy to do it very wrong. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 3 things that you need to really focus on to make lightweight training really work. And for the very first one, we need to understand, why do we actually build muscle with heavy weights in the first place? You see, muchacho, when you're lifting heavy, you're going to be activating a ton of muscle fibers immediately, which is going to help you get a very strong growth response. But on the flip side, when you train with lighter weights, at the beginning of the set, you don't really activate that many muscle fibers. But as the set progresses, you can actually activate just as much muscle fibers as you can while lifting heavy, especially if you focus on the one thing the studies have proven to help build muscle, and that is training close to failure. Because just because you're training with light weights doesn't mean it's going to be light efforts. And the closer you are to failure while using higher reps, the better you're going to get a growth response. And you can actually build almost as much muscle with heavy weights with this approach. But the key word here is almost. Because I think we can all understand on a very deep level that there's no way in hell you're going to build a lot of muscle curling something as light as an apple. This is because training this way is going to take you forever to get to failure. And also in research, it seems like the bottom limit for how light you can go is about 30% of your warm-up max, or approximately 35 reps. But even though this sounds good on paper, the reality is very different.
Come on. Come on, let's go. Come on. Come on. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh.
Anyone that has trained with high reps to failure will be the first to tell you that it is incredibly painful. Because with this style of training, you're going to create a lot of metabolic stress in your muscle, which is going to create a very intense burn, which ironically might make it very difficult for you to hit failure consistently. Therefore, the second thing we need to focus on when trying to build muscle with light weights is actually focusing on not going too light. And with a lot of trial and error, I found a compromise because it seems like the rep range between 15 to 25 is a nice sweet spot. This is heavy enough that you're not going to get a very intense burn and you can hit failure very consistently. And it's also light enough that you can still get a lot of the benefits of training with light weights. But here's the deal though, because even if you train to failure and with the right rep range, there is one more thing you need to consider. Because even if you're doing everything perfectly, if you do the same thing over and over again in the long haul, they're going to look exactly the same. Because when you're trying to build muscle, progressive overload is still extremely important. And when you're using light weights, you can progress things by adding more sets or adding more reps. And you can also add weights. The only problem with adding more weights is that it kind of defeats the entire purpose of training with lighter loads. But there are some things that you can do to make your workouts more intense without having to add any extra weight at all. And one of my favorite ways of doing this is using something called. So how this works is while you're doing an exercise, you pause at the hardest parts of the movement for about 3 to 5 seconds. For example, when you're doing things like pushes, like squats or push-ups, you're gonna pause at the bottom. And when you're doing things like pulls, like pull-ups or rows, you're gonna pause at the top. Muchacho, believe me, if you've never done this technique before, you're gonna be hella surprised. So try this. Do one set of push-ups to failure, and then do another set of push-ups to failure while using pause reps. Count how many reps you did and let me know in the comment section below what numbers you got for each set. In my opinion, this is one of the most underrated techniques to progressively overload your training. But the only issue with this is that it does increase the length of your workouts because of the increased time under tension. But there is another technique that I actually like even better than this one, that reduces the amount of time that you work out, and it also makes your workout way more challenging, hence making it easier for you to build muscle while using light weights. So if you want to learn more about that technique, watch this video right here and I'll catch y'all over there. Peace.